ecosystem is disrupted, the natural habitat damaged, biodiversity reduced, and aquifers dried. The water-rich area we chose to export from will itself desertify. The thirsty populations in the water-poor deserts we ship water to will simply consume the water and send it back to the sea via its sewers, thus still remaining a desert. Where one desert region existed before, two deserts now exist.
Water is a supply and demand commodity. The people that demand it don't have the supply. The supply is often in other parts of the world. The question is how to get it from source to market.
This sets up a kind of contest, and that is between city people and rural people.
Companies are out there constantly looking at what land the farmers own.
Going from farm to farm, just, hello ma'am, hello sir. Now what are you doing farming all day? It must be a lot of work. I bet you get up real early, and why don't you just let us rent or buy your water?
And we have had Texas Water come in and volunteer to build a pipeline. What I'm afraid of happening is the water will not be sold here. Into that pipeline will go out of the basin into areas such as Santa Fe or Albuquerque.
So this is a new development that's taking place as more and more of us move into big cities and don't want to think about where water comes from. Increasingly, it's coming from the places that grow your food. This is really, really, really short-sighted.
You're using water from an ecosystem in Northern California, transporting it through long pipes and canals to Southern California to grow alfalfa. The alfalfa is then shipped to places like Japan, where it is fed to the high-end Kona beef, and then much of that beef is shipped back to the U.S. So we've set up this system of agriculture that just doesn't work anymore, and it's really based on the concept of virtual water, where we're growing crops for export in thirsty places and then moving them long distances, rather than having our food grown more locally and more sustainably. China is a very dry country, but agribusiness is moving there because there are fewer laws and labor is very cheap. Almost all apple juice sold in the United States comes from China now. We're losing our ability to even grow apples because it's cheaper to produce them elsewhere. That means that a country like China that doesn't have very much water is exporting its water to the United States through apples. Then we sign trade agreements like NAFTA so that our subsidized corn using water from desert-like areas in the U.S. can undersell the farmers in Mexico. A lot of that water actually stays in the corn and is then transported to another ecosystem and is completely lost.
For instance, here in Kenya, they grow most of the roses that are sold in Europe, and they export them. And they're grown around a beautiful, beautiful lake called Lake Naivasha, which is being depleted at an appalling rate.
All done by foreign corporations, huge, great big flower plantations. If they keep doing this, within 5 years it will be a putrid puddle. So here's one of the driest continents on Earth, exporting water, being told by the World Bank to export its water to get its way out of debt. Now, I call this theft. I also think it's a form of murder.
Joan Thorpe Root, the Academy Award-nominated British wildlife filmmaker and African conservationist, lived in Kenya and made great efforts to save Lake Naivasha from being destroyed. Her assassins broke the nearest window to her bed, where she was sleeping. Joan awoke, desperately held her blanket out as a shield and charged the three men. The men fired their AK-47 assault rifles from outside the window, riddling the room with bullets through the lace curtains. 2 bullets struck Joan in the leg. 1 hit her in the hip. Joan crawled towards her bathroom, trying to stop the bleeding with a blanket, but died of massive blood loss.
You don't know when the water would flow. It flows once a week, and you don't know the date, the time, so you are forced to open up the tap. When they open their taps, it's air, and when the air blows through the taps, the meters are running, and they are charged for doing this.
There's a pipe coming up, and between the pipe and the tap, there's a water meter, and you have to pay for an electronic key to get charged up. And you can look at it and you can see the water meter counting every single drop. And as one friend of mine said, I can afford about 2 flushes a month from this thing. That's how expensive it is. You know, they just throw their hands up in despair and they go back to that river that has cholera warning signs on it.
If people don't have money to buy water, they go to polluted streams, they get sick. The state has to pay for their health care. You know, why don't you just use money for the necessary thing and to prevent other things that might come up? If in the house I'm the only one employed and I buy water, I'm going to limit or ration the people who are living in that house. That's why then you get domestic violence. Because now I want to do my laundry, but because my sister is the only one employed, she determines when I do my laundry. You know, parents will take the tokens that they use into making sure that the water can run, you know, wherever they go, maybe to work and all that. And then during the day, kids don't have water. And this other woman who lived in a shack with 2 kids took the token and went with it to work. And the shack caught fire. And there was no water to stop the fire. And even the neighbors are saying, we don't have money to stop hair fire, you know? These projects are taking away our humaneness.
I was in grade 1. I was 6, so I didn't really think about much. I thought the whole world was go to school, don't get your parents too angry. You do a charity project each year at our school. You do your canned food drives, you do your raise money for cancer. That year, you're raising money for developing countries.
And for 1 penny, you could get a pencil. 5 pennies, you could get soup for the day or things like this.
And then she got to a point where she said $70 would buy a well. And then she explained to us, yeah, people are dying because they don't have clean water.
They were just disbelieving that. What do you mean you can get sick from water and that you don't have things to clean yourself with, let alone drink the water?
Then we asked, well, if they want water, how far would they have to go? And she said, like, sometimes as far as 10,000 steps. I counted the steps it took me to get from my classroom to the water fountain, and I counted 10. She said, yeah, $70 would buy a well, and it would stop it so people wouldn't have to walk so far. So I thought, okay, that sounds like a good idea, so I'll go home to my mom and dad. They have lots of money, right? And the problem would be solved and no one would die anymore. And I thought it was a great plan.
And we thought, oh, isn't that cute? You know, he wants to build a well. Let's make dinner. Because he was so young, we really did not take him seriously. You don't get it. He said someone just died because they don't have clean water, and you didn't help them.
After a few days, they finally sat me down and they said, what we can do is give you a chance to earn the money by doing extra chores around the house.
Never ever thinking that he would follow through. And I got a piece of blank paper, drew a thermometer on it, 2, 4, 6, 8, all the way up to 70, to give him a sense of how long it was going to take him to get there.
After, I guess, 4 months, I raised the $70. I brought it into an organization that facilitates clean water projects in developing countries. And they looked at me and they said, it's going to cost a bit more than $70 to build an actual well.
And I've always felt bad about telling them that the well wasn't really $70, that it was actually the minimum you could get was $2,000. But I've sort of consoled myself a little by saying that if it had been more, if I'd told him $2,000 at that time, that he never would have gone. That would have been too big for a 6-year-old.
So I started doing public speaking around my community. It slowly grew and grew and grew. The Brian Zoll